welcome everyone. Super excited to talk about this today. And I think we just want to start by really acknowledging this movement that we have seen really begin to change the landscape in the last, say, 18 months, all around moving from project to product. As you see here, 85% of organizations say they have plans to adopt a product-centric model. And you hear about it more and more around within our industry. But why do we see that? And I would be remiss. I think it's impossible to give a webinar this week of all things and not have some level of reflection on what is happening in the world around us today. And what's really interesting is that Nick, our CEO, has been working actually for many years with a woman, Dr. Carlota Perez, who actually has models that help us understand periods like what we're seeing today. And Dr. Perez identifies what she calls turning points, and she and Nick believe that we're really kind of seeing this unfold before our very eyes with what's going on with COVID. In fact, I listened to their podcast a few weeks ago, which actually seems very eerie now given what we're seeing with COVID. But fundamentally, to survive these turning points, companies have to either master a new means of production or they really won't survive. And we're very clearly in the age of software, and the mastery of that age is very clear as well, and that is mastering software at scale. And that's really why the digital natives are the clear front runners and who will survive this turning point. But for non-digital natives, it's imperative, absolutely imperative, that this mastery does not exclude them. And as this quote indicates, there's a hope that we can thrive and come to a sustainable global development model. And so why do I talk about all of that in the context of project to product? Well, I say all of that because project to product is really the movement that at the core is how you are able to master software at scale, or certainly one of the major aspects of being able to master software at scale. So your leadership is probably having conversations like this quite a bit, certainly in the last few weeks and really before that as well. And so for you to understand that as a practitioner and how it can really benefit your organization is very powerful for you as a practitioner, as a contributor, for you to learn how to be a champion, an early adopter, and help your leadership see the way to thrive in this turning point. So there's really 4 key elements in the shift to product. And this is really what we're going to be talking about today with myself and Naomi. And it's really, at a very high level, simple. Measure what matters, get those metrics fast, make sure that you're aligning with the business. That's absolutely critical, and empower your team. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Naomi to start talking through the 4 elements.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the first point, which is measuring what matters, what you measure when you shift to product. So let's drill into that a little. First, I want to tell you a story, and it's the story of Nationwide Insurance during Hurricane Harvey, which, if you recall, was a terrible flooding event that concentrated in Houston. And while the weather forecast had expected this to be a wind event, it actually turned out to be a flood event, and hundreds of thousands of vehicles were flooded. And Nationwide was getting bombarded by phone calls to their contact center of people wanting to file claims on their flooded cars. And they immediately realized that they had to make it easier for those people to file those claims online, where they hadn't prepared the website for that reality at all, right? They weren't expecting flooded cars to be the big thing. So very quickly, they got together the team within a single day, they designed, implemented, and deployed an improved claim filing for flooded vehicles. And they improved the efficiency by 40% and reduced the load on the call center, which of course improved the customer experience. And all this was done with zero downtime. So, Nationwide have spoken about this success story in many of the presentations that they've given to the DevOps community. But the question is, how did they get so good? How did they manage to be able to pull something off like this? And the answer is that, I guess, I'd like to say that also the question is, how can you get to be so fast? Are you able to deliver that kind of turnaround for your business? If you face something today that requires very fast response, are you going to be able to do this? The hope with the shift to product is that, yes, this is what you're striving for, this type of ability to respond to the market real fast. So how did they do it at Nationwide? First, they focused on end-to-end flow in pursuit of getting faster. They made it a goal for themselves that for their claims filing processes, their insurance products, that they could deliver new business capabilities as fast as possible. But in order to have such a goal, you have to understand that it's all the constituent roles and practices and disciplines that take part in the work. They all have to get faster, and you have to figure out what's your baseline? How fast are we going today? Nationwide didn't get to be able to deliver new capabilities within 8 hours without first acknowledging that the baseline was 120 days. So they had to take that, they had to get a metric, what's my baseline, and understand my baseline and understand how I can improve upon it. So first, measure the baseline from ideation to production. Get your baseline. Next, look at that baseline, examine it, and find the system bottlenecks, where work is slowing down. Then take all the smart people that work on this business and experiment around the bottlenecks. Put your heads together and figure out what can we do to alleviate this constraint. What do we have to change in our processes, in our people, in our technology, in order to remove this thing that's slowing us down? And then you take those learnings back and you take them to other value streams who can benefit from the same wins that you've seen. So that's really doing value stream management, right? Looking for ways to improve the flow of value end to end. And as Nicole mentioned, our CEO and founder, Mick Kirsten, who's been working with enterprise IT for over a decade, saw that this was a big challenge for traditional businesses going through their digital transformations and trying to become fast and nimble in order to protect and grow their businesses. And he realized that, especially with the need to move from a project orientation to a product orientation, those organizations needed some help. It's not a simple shift to make. It's not easy to switch from project to product, nor is it easy to do value stream management on the very complex and creative knowledge work that we have in software delivery. So he made a blueprint, which is called the Flow Framework. The Flow Framework is a prescriptive, lean, easy to understand methodology for doing value stream management with a product orientation over the existing realities of traditional IT, which might not be product oriented at all. And we're going to talk about that today. But not only did he write the book, we built a product to make this something that every traditional IT organization can adopt. So we have the framework for it and then a product that implements it. And that product is called Tasktop Viz. And we're going to be talking about Tasktop Viz today. We're going to be taking you through kind of how it answers all those questions, how it helps you measure what matters, and how it helps you move from project to product gradually. So Nicole, I'll hand it back over to you to start walking our audience through the elements of the Flow Framework.
Terrific. Thanks, Naomi. Yeah. So as a longtime product manager, I feel extremely lucky to basically have been handed the blueprint for our product strategy based on Mick's book and the power of the Flow Framework. And the key the keys behind the flow framework are really around making sure that you are measuring the right things and crafting your end-to-end flow such that you have the capability to measure these things. So at the end of the day, your real goal is around making sure that you can have visibility into these 5 key metrics. So the first one, flow distribution. This one is all about making sure that you have an understanding of what of your total capacity, how much of that capacity is going towards features versus risk versus defect versus debt. It's a very, very powerful indicator and help to understand where your capacity is actually going to. And we're going to be telling some stories involving flow distribution later. In fact, I will share with the group that it's actually my favorite of the flow metrics, my personal favorite. So that's flow distribution. And why is it so important? This healthy, there's probably many of you on this call can think back and remember to yourself, oh my goodness, I could not get the business. I could not get the business to let us work on technical debt. And they're not understanding that because of that, we're now less able to deliver features because our debt is so high. And so having this healthy mix of features, defect, debt, and risk is really, and tying that to the business value creation work is crucial. And once the business people realize that, it changes the dynamic of everyone's workflow, of everyone's work structures as well. So it's an extremely powerful tool. The next up is flow velocity. How much value is being delivered in the reporting period? How many features have I delivered in the last quarter? How many defects have I fixed in the last quarter? And by the way, as I talk through all of these, you never want to look at these individually without having the context of the other flow metrics alongside of that, along obviously with the context of how your business runs. So flow velocity is all about how much value is being delivered within a reporting period. Flow efficiency. How are my teams waiting for significant periods of time during the course of the end-to-end flow, in which case if I could improve my flow efficiency, obviously I could improve my flow velocity and thus affect my flow distribution potentially. So you see how they all kind of chain together. So flow efficiency is all about, are there areas that are bottlenecks where people are waiting for significant periods of time that you could improve? Next up is flow time. How long does it take from cash to consumption, right? From the idea coming in, from request all the way to release. And of course, your goal is always to have the lowest flow time possible, which of course, if your flow efficiency is not good, your flow time, of course, will go up, and your flow velocity will go down. Again, just an indication of how all of these 5 key metrics play together. So flow time, how much time from request to release. And then next up is flow load. And this one is kind of often that unsung hero, or I don't know if that's the right phrase, but unsung aspect that really makes a tremendous difference. Our team's thrashing because their incomings far outweigh their capacity to deliver. And just how, as we all learned in school, that when your CPU thrashes, the whole thing shuts down. Same with humans working in a knowledge worker situation. So in the end, you want to balance all of these different flow metrics. And with that, I will hand it back over to Naomi to show you that.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to flip over here. Now we're going to look at a live instance of a demo environment for Tasktop Viz. And what I'd like to show you here, first of all, this is the dashboard that we just walked you through. First thing I want to draw your attention to is you never optimize flow for a product value stream in a vacuum. You are always doing it in pursuit of business results. And there are 4 main categories of business results that you're going to be pursuing as a product value stream. It's the value that you're creating for the business. It's the cost of operating this value stream. It's the quality of what you're putting out there for your customers. And it is the happiness of the people working on the value stream, right? Because here we talk about things like burnout and turnover. So what's pretty cool about these metrics is that they're really dynamic, and not only can you view them by quarter, you can view them by month and kind of look at trends in the way your flow is changing. Of course, you can look at it even by week and by day and start to see events like releases or reorganizations. How are they changing your flow? And if you're changing a process or adding a tool, is it having the right impact on your flow? So that's, I just want to show you that kind of like really high level. The other thing I wanted to show you here is that you can also toggle these graphs. So of course, in this view, we're looking at everything this product value stream is creating. But let's say you have a business goal to increase feature output, right? You want to increase your velocity. The business says you're not delivering enough and fast enough. And you've put in place measures to see if you can improve that. So you could just toggle on features and focus on features. And as you're making that progress, you can say, wow, look at this. Look at how great. We're looking at our flow time. Our flow time is actually gone down quarter by quarter. And we've also increased how much we're delivering for the business, right? Because our velocity is nearly tripled. So that's a tremendous success story that your flow metrics can show. And you can use them to target specific changes, and then to also share this with the business, with the leadership, to show your progress. Now, you can also show negative things, right? Not everything is always rosy. For example, Nicole before gave the example that says we're not paying down debt. And what we're noticing is, let's say, in an example would be a lack of purple, meaning a lack of debt coming through the value stream, which is resulting in an increase in defects. And in the fact that, feature flow has gone down to a trickle because even the smallest little change is requiring us to, figure our way out through a tremendous amount of spaghetti code that just is impossible. All right. So those are just a few things that I wanted to show you about the dynamic aspect of the dashboards, and we're going to come back periodically to the demo environment to discover more things. So let's switch back to slides. And Nicole, want to talk about the next key element?
Yes. So the thing that's, of course, that the goal is to get those metrics. That's what the goal is to be able to measure what matters, and those are the metrics that matter. But the tricky bit is getting to those metrics fast. And kind of the secret sauce around how Viz allows you to do that is all in our ability to model. And anyone at Tasktop is probably sick to death of hearing me say modeling is the most important thing. I'm on a soapbox about it all the time, but it is in fact the most important thing. And the reason why is that you have to ensure that to be able to measure what matters, you have to understand what matters and be able to get that instantly and quickly. And so our product modeling capability that Naomi will demo momentarily allows you to point to all of the different tools you see on the screen in front of you, tools like Trello, HPALM, obviously Jira. We have over 60 different connectors. So the product modeling allows you to connect to those tools and create the right swath through those tools to make sure that you're measuring the most important things. So after you do your product modeling, you do what we call activity modeling. And activity modeling is where at the core, the key thing is that you want to measure features, defect, risk, and debt, and you want to understand the bottlenecks, new, active, waiting, and done states. And so Viz allows you to go in and identify what the individual artifacts coming from the underlying tools, which ones of those artifacts map to feature, defect, risk, and debt. And then you go in and through the modeling of flow states, because as you can imagine, any organization of any size could have many, many, many different flow states. you map them to new, active, waiting, and done. And at that point, you're able to begin to see your metrics. And the last piece, of course, is the integration model, and that is key to being able to create kind of your tool network, your end-to-end tool network. So you hear Tasktop talk about this all the time. Siloed views in to just one tool is not at all enough to get you that end-to-end visibility that you need to be able to do what Nationwide did when Hurricane Harvey hit. You need to have your full end-to-end tool network with your activities modeled on top of that and through the lens of the proper product model. And so with that, I will hand it back over to Naomi to go into a bit of detail of how you do that in Viz.
Absolutely. So let's preface this by saying that we recognize that your IT infrastructure, your technical infrastructure, your tool infrastructure, nothing is set up, for products, right? You've probably been doing many IT projects over the years. Sometimes your tools and even your components, they more map to an organizational structure than any kind of business view of what you're actually delivering to customers at the end of the day. But if you're shifting from project to product, then you need to be able, even over that existing reality, to paint a picture of just the subset of work that contributes to a specific product. So it could be correlated to business results, like revenue, like visitors, like usage, right? So that's what we talk about when we talk about modeling. So the first thing that you do in Viz is you connect Viz to the tools you're using. Your Jira, your Azure DevOps, your ServiceNow, your Salesforce, your GitHub. You can see some examples I have here. So you connect Viz to them, and then that allows Viz to reach into them to pull out the various subsets of work. So let's take it. I'm going to show you what that looks like. You basically, if we look very broadly at any value stream for software delivery, there are four main stages where, first you ideate what is it that you want to develop, what is it you want to deliver, then you go into a creation phase where you implement it, you test it, then you release it, and then you operate it in production. And as the custodians of a long-term, product, you got to do that, over and over through the whole life cycle of the product. So where in each of these tools does the specific work of this product value stream lie? So you would say in Jira, it's these two projects that actually, that's where the work is done for this product variable annuities. But the legal work that has to, approve specific things, well, that's in this Trello board. And the support tickets are actually happening in Zendesk. So you point Viz at the subset of data within each tool where collaborators are doing their work. And once you have that set up, well, of course, I'll just go back to where we were, which was home insurance. You can go into that point-and-click modeling that Nicole was talking about. This isn't an exercise for a DBA. This is for you, the product leaders, the development leaders, to work with your value streams and do this on your own. You're modeling your own work based on your understanding of how things go in your system. So first thing you do is you identify which of all the artifacts that exist in the tools that you've selected and in the projects that you've pointed Viz as, which are the ones that truly carry business value? Which are the ones that represent the new capabilities, the quality fixes you've done, the technical debt, or the audit and compliance work that you're doing? And you use your point-and-click mapping to just model them to the appropriate flow item. If your realities are more complex and actually a story, could it be a debt, a risk, and a feature, well, then you create some conditions based on the metadata of the artifact itself. Like let's say, I'm trying to think of a good field to give you as an example, but if like the source is architecture, refactoring, oh, well, that might give me an indication that this is technical debt. Now, once you've identified all the artifacts that are actually carrying the value, now you want to go through the process of mapping the workflow that those artifacts go through into those 4 flow states. When is it? New, active, waiting, and done. Because really, that's the flow of work. It's either new and not been accepted into the value stream, or it should be either actively worked on, or maybe it's waiting for the next workstation, or maybe it's waiting because it's blocked. And then it gets to done once it makes it through the pipeline at the other end of the value stream. So again, here, you don't have to be a mastermind. You use the point and click menus to just set the meaning of each of those workflow states. And if some of you, you guys work in big enterprises and you have different locations and you have a lot of variability between how people work, well, no problem. Each team, each geographic location, each specialized, workforce within this value stream can adapt the model to the way they work. So Viz adapts to you. You don't have to adapt to it. Express the way work flows in your value stream using this point and click model. So the differentiator here versus like ETL things is where everything gets pumped in a big database and there's some third party who's making a judgment call on your work to feed metrics up to leadership. This is different. This is you making the judgment call about how your work flows and you being able to feel ownership over the data so that you can trust the figures, and then you can use them to solve your own problems, but also to share them with your leadership for making those decisions, for giving them the desired visibility that they want to have. All right, so all that modeling feeds into, what eventually paints the flow metrics that we were looking at earlier. One more thing I wanted to show you now that we're back here, all that modeling that we've done to the flow of work, identifying active and waiting states, that's what allows Tasktop to then find your bottlenecks. So once we're back here, you've done your modeling, we can open up a bottleneck finder, which is going to look at the flow of work in this value stream and start to show you places where work is piling up, which you can see over here, high volumes relative to everything else in a specific state, or long time spent in that state, which might also be an indication that this is a bottleneck. So active states can be bottlenecks and waiting states could be bottlenecks. But once we can plot these out for you, taking the data from across the value stream, not just implementation work, but also ideation work and production work. And then you can see where is the systems bottleneck, because you don't want to end up doing local optimizations on any one segment of the value stream that don't benefit the flow as a whole. So this is why we say value stream management is one level above Agile and DevOps. Agile and DevOps are great. Now put something over them so you can see where work is slowing down across all those things, so you now know where to invest your money, where it's going to actually make a difference, versus doing some local optimization that doesn't impact end-to-end flow as a whole. It doesn't help you get to be as fast as nationwide, so to speak. All right, so let's go back to our slides and move on to the third point. And that will be for you, Nicole. Number 3.
Yes. So the third key element is aligning with the business. And, at the end of the day, we're only building software to help further business goals and business value. And so what's absolutely critical is that you're using your flow metrics to align with the business. And so what that really means in shifting, when you're doing the shift from project to product, is that there's long-term ownership of a product value stream. It is not a milestone-driven, at the beginning of the year, you got budget for X amount of people for 1 year, and now, they're going to do this specific work, and then the team is going to be disbanded. It's long-lived ownership. And as part of that, being that custodian of that long-lived product, is you have to be able to negotiate with your business partners about what is getting done. I already sort of mentioned a story around people not paying enough attention to their technical debt. Any product manager, would say, oh my goodness, this plagues us regularly, that risk work and technical debt work is of equal importance. And so the flow metrics really allow you to shine a light on the realities of the 4 different types of work so that you can ensure that you have that kind of proper negotiation around how much of your capacity should be going to each of those categories. So I'm going to pass over to Naomi to tell a quick story around kind of the price of hidden technical debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's look at a story from an enterprise using Tasktop Viz. This was in the financial services domain. So I want to call your attention over here, folks. When we're looking at their flow velocity, meaning what are they delivering through their product value stream, you might see that there's a lot of defect work, but the ratio of defect work to feature work that actually benefits the business is quite striking, right? They're not having a ton of features make it through the pipe. And this is a problem for them because this is an industry that is being massively disrupted, and you have to be able to respond very rapidly to the market. So the other thing that might strike you when you're looking at this is that there's no purple on this dashboard. So that means that this value stream is not doing any debt work and hasn't been doing it over the course of, at a minimum, the last 4 months. And, it gets you to wonder, like, could their core velocity on feature side be linked somehow to debt? So that was like the question that we started asking ourselves when we were working with them. And so we drilled in to look at features, and you definitely can see that feature work, you see this kind of light green, and then you see the dark green. The light green is where feature work is waiting. So in the value stream, the work is waiting. Not people are waiting, it's the work. Like there's nobody to pick up the work when it gets to a specific spot. So it's waiting, which means it's taking longer to get through the pipe, and it's lengthening time to market. And it's also, kind of debilitating for them, right? So why is work waiting? So again, here we use that find bottlenecks utility that I showed you before in the demo, and it revealed something really interesting. This was a digital channel team, but when they modeled their product, they made sure to model in their dependencies, right? Because even when you're making a change for a feature that you want in your digital channel, it may impact the core backend services that financial systems have, right? This is like the equivalent of your mainframe, right? This is the big, this is the core engine of every financial transaction that takes place. So even digital channels actually have a dependency on this core backend. And what was very interesting was that Viz immediately spotted that that was the bottleneck, the core backend services. That's where, no matter how much they funded this value stream and how much upfront work everybody was doing in order to design and implement nice things on the front end digital channels, work was getting stuck when it hit this painful legacy constraint of a core backend services. And that was something that needed to be brought to light. There's a tremendous amount of debt living inside these core backend services. And if you never bring light to them, if you don't invest in slaying the monolith, breaking them up, right, and maybe going to microservices, maybe getting that into the product value streams themselves, then it's going to debilitate and slow down even your most market-forward features. And this is something that the business needed to know and see, that if we want digital channels to get better, then so did core backend services. And we need to be funding both sides of this coin. And, I'll share with you a quote that the folks here, the VP DevOps said. He said, one of the reasons that we brought in this tool, which is Viz, is that we've lost credibility. People weren't willing to fund something without seeing a demonstrable improvement. But with a tool like Viz in place, if you can show that I'm hacking away at the technical debt of core backend services, and in turn, it's improved the velocity for features, or there you go. You've proved your business case. And now you've built a level of trust with the business when you say, I need money, I need resources, you can get them because you're able to link those investments to something demonstrable. Okay, so back to you, Nicole, number 4.
Number 4, thanks, Naomi. Last but in no way least is all about the importance of empowering teams. And this one is near and dear to my heart, again, having been in product management for many years. The whole goal is always to make sure that you have teams that feel motivated and empowered to improve themselves, because fundamentally humans always want to improve themselves. And oftentimes, especially in larger organizations, they end up getting stuck because they aren't able to kind of prove some of the constraints. And so I'm going to tell a story around how by using Tasktop Viz, a team was able to prove via data how you can actually improve things for your team. So this is a healthcare organization, and they were inundated with defects and support tickets. And they spent some time taking a look as to why that was the case. And what's very, very interesting is that, believe it or not, they were delivering too fast, delivering features too fast. And what that really meant is that they had over 20,000 end users, all in the healthcare industry, and people that are dealing with patients, all day long. They can't have things changing in their software all the time and not get a little bit overwhelmed and confused. And so what was happening is that the team was delivering these features, and they were then being inundated with trouble tickets and potential defects because people weren't understanding how to use things properly. So what they did is they implemented a process change, and they changed their release cadence. So internally, they were still doing continuous delivery, but they used feature flags to only turn on new functionality once a month, along with sending a newsletter to their end users with that. And you can see an immediate impact in the work. So you'll notice Naomi and I speak often in colors. You see more green now and less red after they made that change. And so the team was able, they were empowered to see what was going on, affect change, and see the positive outcome almost instantly, which is fabulous. Then in addition,
I'll just chime in there, Nicole, that after they saw that this experiment delivered so much success, they started teaching the trick to other product value streams who had the same issues. So they actually amplified the benefit across the organization.
Fabulous. It's one of my favorite stories that we've learned from our customers. So in addition, they also had the unbelievable, seemingly fact that they had 100% efficiency, which we all know is not the case. And actually, one of the things that we find most common is that there's artificial inflation in your flow efficiency numbers when you start using Viz. And that is largely because most people don't actually model in many of their wait states. And so this team, again, because they were empowered, this team was using Azure DevOps, they went in and actually began to add more of their wait states. And what's so important is that what they discovered had massive impact on making sure that they actually invested in the actual bottleneck, not the perceived bottleneck. The perceived bottleneck was, oh, well, we better get more developers. But when they began to look at the actual efficiency, the real bottleneck was actually in business analysis capacity, not development capacity. And so by using Viz and by analyzing their efficiency, they actually, this is one of my favorite quotes, we were able for the first time to get a resource allocated to us outside of a budgeting cycle based on taking this live data to our CIO. And so these two examples, reducing time spent on incidents and defects from 60% to 20%, getting investment in the right area to make sure that teams can be as efficient as possible, the result of that is you have happier teams as well. So again, this notion of using Viz and the flow metrics to be the catalyst for conversation to empower teams is extremely, extremely powerful.
Awesome. So lots of times when people, are faced with the shift from project to product, they're like, maybe a little afraid, like, oh my gosh, do I have to do all this preparation in order to, reorg and, retrain and everything before I can get started? But the idea is that no, even, no matter the way you're working today, you can start pointing the product lens at your organization's existing flow. Okay, so because a tool like Viz is just overlays the existing structure and technical realities that you have. So you can measure your flow, get that baseline, understand how long it takes you to do something today, understand where you were before Nationwide, right, set out to do all their optimization, then show where your problems are, right? So you can be empowered to make the changes and then see the impact of your efforts on the data itself. This will help you have the healthier conversations with the business when you're going to plan and strategize, and also, like Nicole said, improve team happiness and engagement because they are empowered to use all their great ideas for the benefit of the product value stream. There's no premature changes. There's no long prep. There's no prerequisites. And you can get this new visibility and insight within days.
And really, it's all because I'm just going to reiterate what Naomi just said. No premature changes, no long prep, no prerequisites. And why? It's because you're able to model. The power of modeling cannot be underestimated. If you have to have everything preset with static ETLs, et cetera, you will not be able to get your metrics quickly and with the flexibility necessary to be able to see the changes as they occur, as you begin to improve things, and then go back in and change your modeling to then reflect your new reality. So product modeling, flow item modeling, and flow state modeling are the kind of core underpinnings that allow you to, again, look at any tool and any way that that tool is being used and apply this abstraction layer of feature, defect, at risk, new, active, waiting, done across ideate, create, operate, release, and get your flow metrics very, very, very quickly with accuracy.
Awesome. So before we hand back to Laurel to take some of your questions, we just want to say that if you're interested in the journey from project to product and you'd like us to give you a personalized demo of Tasktop Viz or just answer any questions that you have, please reach out to us through our tasktop.com website. And I'd also like to invite you on Tuesday, March 31st at 2 p.m. Eastern. Our CEO, Mick Kirsten, is delivering a webinar with one of our Tasktop Viz customers, T-Mobile. So they'll be sharing their stories and their learnings and about their journey to from project to product. So please join us there. You can find the details on the Tasktop website and on our Bright Talk channel. So now over to you, Laurel. Do we have any questions from the audience?
We do. Thank you, Naomi and Nicole. And just as a reminder to everyone, if you do have questions, you can place them in the questions box, which is right below the video screen. Our first question is, are flow load and flow efficiency two sides of the same coin? If one function is waiting for work, won't another be bogged down by work in progress? Why measure both?
Sure. So, I'll take that one, Naomi, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the thing that's interesting is that, as I said when we went through all of the flow metrics, is that there's absolutely interplay between them. And so you'll notice that if your flow efficiency goes down, your velocity oftentimes goes up. There's a correlation between them and an interplay between them in no uncertain terms. But what you want to make sure is that you're seeing, we believe that you need all 5 of those metrics to be able to get the kind of complete picture. Because if you think of efficiency on its own, you might have a certain area within your process where the efficiency is quite low. The waiting time could be quite low, quite high, but you might happen to have a lot of people working on that. And so you'll notice that come out, you'll notice that shown in different ways by looking at load in conjunction with efficiency. So we believe strongly that you need to be looking at all 5 of these in conjunction all the time, as there is interplay between them as well.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in there. So flow efficiency is a backward-looking metric. So think about flow efficiency. Work has to make it through the pipe. It made it to done, and so that you can give a judgment call on its efficiency. All right? So you only get flow efficiency when something has completed through the entire cycle. Flow load is unique in that it is a measure of work in progress. So it can be your warning sign, that things are going to get much worse soon. Why? Because the higher the load, that means you always have to find a sweet spot between team's capacity, right, and demand. So you're always looking for that sweet spot. If you allow flow load to climb, that means people are taking on, the value stream is taking on more and more work. Eventually, you'll learn that past a certain threshold, things start slowing down, right? Flow efficiency starts going down when the flow load, let's take an example, is 30. You're looking to understand that about the interplay between these metrics so that you know that the sweet spot for this value stream is, 30 things, right? If we find ourselves going to 32, 34, because we know the future impact of that high load is that efficiency will decline, flow times will get longer, and flow velocity will go down. So that's a leading indicator.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is for Nicole, maybe you can answer this. Do you need to have Tasktop Hub in place in order to use Tasktop Viz?
No, you do not have to have Hub in place in order to use Viz. The thing that's super interesting is that, Viz is going to, as the name indicates, provide visibility into where your bottlenecks are. And what's interesting is that Hub can actually help you fix the bottlenecks by making the flow of information far more efficient. So you do not have to have Hub in place in order to use Viz. Viz does take advantage of all the same connectors that we use for Hub, but you want to get that visibility first, and then you can use Hub to begin to see improvements in your flow, your end-to-end flow.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is, do you have guidance on how to interpret the metrics given they are always correlated?
They're always what, Laura?
Correlated?
Oh, given that they're correlated.
I think they're trying to. Oh, sorry, Naomi, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nicole. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the interpreting the metrics is in and of itself actually a really interesting kind of discipline, because you absolutely have to understand that they are correlated. So there's not one specific guidance, but there's a set of guidance on the fact that oftentimes if you see velocity go down, it is oftentimes because load went up. But they're not, there's not, I guess I would say you always need to understand the context and the nuances in your particular organization. There are some general signatures that you will see across them. And in fact, within Viz, we give some examples of some common things that you tend to see across the metrics. Naomi, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think that was a great answer. I also want to stress to people that you always need to look at your flow metrics in the light of the business results that you're trying to achieve. So you're not just trying to make the graph look pretty. Yeah, you're not just trying to impress someone. You're really using this in order to do what's right for the business. Do you guys know that there was a time, Mick tells a story in his book, in Microsoft, where Bill Gates gave the instruction to the entire organization to stop developing features and only focus on security. It was I think it was called the Trusted Security Initiative. Oh, I can't remember exactly, but it's an amazing story. He said, all I want you guys to do is focus on what we would call in the flow framework, risk. Okay? So if you would go into Microsoft with their flow metrics, then their graphs would be 100% yellow. That's all they did was this Trusted Security Initiative. And they knew that that was critical for them and where they were going in their business. So that was a known decision. There's no right and wrong in, the interplay of your metrics. You do what you need for the business. The beauty of it is that the digital natives know how to do this instinctively, just like Bill Gates understood it, right? He understood the trade-offs, and that's okay. What we need now is for the people in traditional businesses and the IT organizations to learn what's kind of instinctively understood by digital native tech giants, is that, in the world of software, all these things play with each other, and you make trade-offs and priorities together with your leadership and your business partners.
Great, thank you both. The next question is for Nicole. How technical do you have to be to administer Viz? Is there any scripting?
Yeah, great question. The whole goal behind Viz is that in no way do you need to be technical to administer Viz. What you need is to be able to know how you think in your product value streams and be able to kind of understand how your product value stream works. So it requires no scripting whatsoever. You point at the end tools and it begins automatically populating the data, and then you do the modeling. That's why the modeling is so important, right? And so it's putting that business lens on the underlying artifacts that represent the work that are there, the work that is there. So you definitely do not need to be technical to administer Viz and to get value out of it, and there's no scripting.
Awesome. The last question is, Nicole, if you could just explain more about modeling.
So the modeling is what allows you to, the work that is happening in the artifacts that exist in all of your underlying systems that you're utilizing. And modeling allows you to take the data out of those systems, but shape it into what makes sense from a product and business perspective. So the modeling is all about taking the digital footprint that exists in the underlying tools and applying the business lens on top of it, so that you make sure that you're actually measuring what matters and measuring what is part of your particular product value stream. And concretely, modeling is about mapping all of the underlying artifacts or the relevant underlying artifacts to feature, defect, debt, and risk, and then mapping all of the underlying state to new, active, waiting, and done. And then, of course, there's the integration modeling as well, going from end to end to across all of your tools.
And that's all we have time for today. If you have any more questions, please contact us. I want to also thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Nicole and Naomi, again for presenting. Thank you all.